presenting. Thanks a lot. Our next speaker is Hang Wu. He's an engineer, and he is RAN blockchain co-founder. The title of his presentation is The Intelligence Augmentation Applied to Humans Learning. Please, yeah. Welcome, Hang Wu. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about something fun because I realize that there are many parents here. So there's a good news. The good news is the technology is actually moving faster than ever. We actually have 6 major trends of technologies just emerging for the last decade. And the bad thing is that it's probably going to destroy the future of humanity as a whole. Because the real thing is that because 3 days ago I read a news is that Google is finally dropping the "don't be evil" motto, so that they don't want to be evil anymore, and they start to embracing do the right thing. And by do the right thing, it means that they actually actively working with the government to do surveillance on people. So, but the fun thing is that that's actually could just be a start, and it could actually go so much worse and so much better depending on who you ask, right? So the fun thing is that, you know, I used to think that I have a solution to solve that. But the truth of the matter is that it's not really something that you can actually simply solve. The matter is that, first of all, it's actually bottom up. The problem is actually bottom up. Is actually the educational system is fundamentally broken, and this is from my point of view, is that when you actually see the 2 pictures, you cannot realize that one of them is from 150 years ago, because the educational system, they remain exactly the same for 150 years, while the car, if you see 150 years ago, you would only see horses, and if you actually see the phone, you wouldn't see a smartphone, you would see something that requires a huge manual operation, a wooden box that's not recognizable, and that belongs to a museum. I would argue that the current education system actually belongs to a museum from my point of view, but the truth of the matter is, it actually could be far worse than that. The thing is that I feel like education is actually the best torturing method of them all. The thing is that it applies to everybody and applies for more than 20 years. And the thing is that unlike the Chinese waterboarding in the middle and the iron version on the left, what education does is that it traps you to a container, an invisible container that you cannot get out. Just like the iron version, but you cannot see it. It forces you to have some sort of identity which is forged by the society. It's not really there. And it suffocates you for a long time until you feel like you can no longer sustain it, and you give up, just like what waterboarding does. And that's exactly how I feel what it is. The real problem is that I do think that most of the educators, including teachers, they always have extremely good intentions, and they want people to succeed. I can see the passion and energy, and with actively exploring method in order to actually help those people. But the truth of the matter is that what if the system is just too complex and is too contained? Because if that's the case, I often think that it's not really a problem of the educational system, it's a problem of the values that we have. Our value system, and by extension, the evaluation system, is fundamentally wrong. And by that, what I mean is that because it's wrong, it gives a false expectation to people to behave in a certain way, to do certain things, even though the technology, which I'm wearing a lot, that's actually passing by, that's actually changing a lot. I can bet that the most of technologies that I wear, you don't even know what it is. It's because of how technology, and those technologies, they belong into my, well, I should say previous lab or my former lab for more than 10 years. And the recent development of that is what you know as IoT, or you could know as a wearable computing, or you know as a smart watch, the smart wristband, and the brain, what do we call the brain-computer interface, BCI, the thing that can interact your computer directly with your brain waves. So, what I'm presenting today is that what if that the entire value system is actually changed? What could that actually mean? I mean that it's not that the valuation system is changed in a way that our perception changed. Our perception still are in the 1850, where the education remains the same, but the technology has passed so much that it is actually embracing what we call, for example, crowdsourcing, for example, automation. Do you know that the Industrial Revolution 4.0, which is actually entirely based on automation of every single thing that could actually eliminate 80% of the workers, construction workers, not really construction, the workers in the factories. Do you know that those automation techniques can actually be used in office to actually replace office jobs? And of course, that could be used in educational sectors to replace educators. Do you actually know that actually just 5 days ago, we just realized that what we call is a Turing test is basically AI in a specific area. They surpass the abilities of a human. So that if you actually get a phone call, it may not really be a real person. It may actually be an impersonator by the AI. And the human can no longer tell the difference anymore. That's the reality we are actually living in right now. We are not even talking about the future yet. We are just talking about right now. And you probably wonder, how can I actually tell you about the technology and what exactly does that matter? This is because we, or our former self, is actually from a really, we call it the really prestigious lab, or the most prestigious lab that's actually in innovative technology. And by that, what I mean is that AR, AI, wearable, which is what I'm wearing, IoT, and of course, the entire synergy of those technologies. We are not just interested in one area. And we are actually actively trying to partner with companies and universities such as Stanford, MIT, Harvard before, and also, well, the rest. The fun thing is that when we start to do these things, we just want to focus on the research area in order to find out the technology that has never been done, never been explored before. But since with the new addition to our team, that we actually form new projects, new prospects that has never really been done. The new projects that can actually show the applications, that can actually turn into businesses, that actually can actually transcend what life is. And it just originates in Toronto right now. Toronto, you know, the fun thing is that, because I know another speaker has said this before, but Toronto is actually the innovation center. It's the birthplace of modern deep learning, which is actually, you could say, a birthplace of AI, the birthplace of blockchain. Well, the second version of blockchain 2.0, and the birthplace of wearable, because my teacher is actually the father of wearable computing, so yeah, it is the birthplace of wearable. It's a birthplace of IoT, if I really want to argue. Toronto is not a place that to be messing with, because there are people that my friends that are actually in Silicon Valley, they are actually coming here due to the low cost of living and the really high abilities or opportunities for breakthroughs and innovations. the thing is that when I was in school, because this is education, I'm tying back. When I was still in university, I actually helped creating, well, not really helping, but it's actually creating the curriculum that's actually doing things. That's actually helping, but those evaluation methods is actually not working. So in 2015, I get what we call ARDDS, and it's an evaluation system that's directly reading your brainwaves in order to evaluate how intelligent you are. That was actually used in my lab. We're joking that to actually understand who is going to be accepted based on a 5-second test using a computer. So I no longer need a standardized test, nor do I actually need your input. In 2016, there's a new version that's actually actively trying to do enhancement of the human brain. However, for obvious reasons, these kind of projects is actually being regulated because, well, you actually mess up with your brain, so you're actually being regulated, and therefore it has to move private. Therefore, but still, there are some of the information that is still actually being used, and those information are actually put out today. The information that actually shows exactly how the technology could actually improve the human brain, regardless of how seemingly limited that your capability is. Even though if you don't feel like you are the smartest kid or the smartest person, it could actually improve their intelligence by 40% or more. That's actually backed by researchers in DARPA. That's actually the research of the defense place in United States, which is the most advanced facility of them all. Of course, there are actually other technologies that's actually being involved when I was still actively trying to do breakthrough researches. And those researches are regulated, are limited. They are not on the table. You couldn't merely see the news because for obvious reasons, actually I need to sign a lot of NDAs, and these ones are the ones that could actually be publicly shown. And this is actually from 2016, the beginning of 2016, that I warned the problems in my another presentation. I warned the dangers of AI. And at the time, I was still trying to actively warn because AI was actually being popular, just being really popular. It has a resurgence in 2016. And the fun thing is that, well, first of all, nobody really listens because there are lots of profit on the line. And second of all, I never really say that we need regulations. I say that we need alternatives. And the alternatives never come because people don't see the profitability of the alternatives, which would actually destroy the future. This one actually still shows exactly, actually in 2015, I actually showed that in 2015, Uber is already trying to destroy human jobs. And that was actually, that's not even the beginning point. It's actually date back to 2013 and 2012. And now it's in 2018 now. We are not in a good shape, and that's exactly what it is. I know I have 1 minute, but I'm totally gonna finish it. The problem is that the whole structure is entirely complicated, and it's not properly regulated. Most of the regulation happens several 20 or 30 years ago, and it's not really being. There's no breakthrough. There's no way that you can actually innovate. That's actually the problem because you cannot just change one legislation or using one technology. If you try to use AI just in one part of the solution, you are not really changing the whole thing. You are just changing part of them. And that's actually a problem. You may be making the older system seems more efficient so that you can punish people more for their creativity, their abilities to break through. But then again, how is that actually going to help? The thing is that it's not. And because it's not, we were trying to, actually one of my partners is trying to actually sign a new kind of modularized kind of group. Those groups are actually in multiple schools of the student associations of schools right now. And they include the University of Toronto, they include in the University of Western Ontario. That includes actually, and just recently I actually get into China, and Tsinghua, the University of Tsinghua actually is interested in this, in the group and collaborating with us in order to give new kinds of ways for socialization and providing other skills. But that's not really enough. Even if you give them opportunities to making connections and getting those so-called EQ or those skills, which are measurable and they can be measured by this device really easily, the problem is that it's not really good enough. So, wait, I need to skip. I cannot. No, okay. Yeah, that's why in 2018 we start to do new projects. A project that's actually based on blockchain and self-governance in a way that's actually granted independence to every single person. And the thing actually also has a much bigger vision, but one of the visions is that using that to the current students and the young professionals so that they can actually realize their values. And since it's actually too complicated, and which is that, I'm going to show you the simpler version of how exactly it works. It uses three of the major technologies that's being called the breakthrough of the centuries. One of them is the brainwave kind of, what do we call it is a brainwave evaluation. Evaluates what we call the EEG, the brain signals, and trying to find out exactly what kind of mental capacity you have. The other one is actually using computer vision, using voice recognition, and using social profile. Since that people actually from the millennials, they all have social profiles, so the information can be gathered without your permission, and the other two definitely need your permission, and I need you to have a device. But the profile that I can create actually have a huge accuracy of your, forget about accuracy, it's actually the capacity that it could do, the extension that it could actually be, the extension that it could do expressed to so many areas. They include your financial abilities, including your employment abilities, your intelligence, logics, and emotions. And the thing is that I want a unified evaluation system in the end that could be used, that could essentially just give you a plus and a minus score, that are actually using this to give you a life score so that you can actually being used to do anything in your life. And by the way, this is actually from a famous TV show that's on air right now. It's called The Good Place, and this is going to get you to heaven. And the reason is that it's only a plus and a minus score that's actually based on the data that we can actually create. By using wearables, IoTs, or other technologies, you can actually gather data from your human body, from the smart homes, the smart cities, the other places that Canada, China, or United States, they actively want. And by using that, by extension, you can use that to evaluate every single person of every single day. And using that, you can actually measure them. And I'm not talking about, of course, I'm not just talking about the future of education, but I'm talking about the evaluation system that's actually really evaluating you and treating you differently rather than doing the exact same thing. And that's actually using the technologies that's actually futuristic. That's actually being in trend right now. And that's actually being used and being actively studied and researched in the top university across the globe. And that's the thing that we are trying to do. And that's the thing we are trying to fix, is trying to fix the problem, the perception, and what we call is actually the reality. Maybe the future is actually based on a single app. Maybe it is an app-based universe, the universe of a single app that can do every single thing, that can give you the job, that can give you the educational certificate, that can actually lend you to the money, that can goes you to any kind of social place that you want. But that is not a science fiction. Because if 20 years ago I tell you that AI is a science fiction, then you need to remember that in today, people is actually using the drones that's actually flying on the air to do the security and surveillance on its people, and this is actually becomes a science reality now. And yeah, so I guess that this actually concludes my presentation, except that one thing. We like to call ourselves, if actually there are so many companies, they are really interested in calling that they want to all in AI, which is actually the top trending thing right now. We want to be all in human. Human is actually the future, isn't it? And if we are not all in human, probably we're all going to be replaced by machines. Thank you very much.